At the heart of the Sabbath question is whether God's law is capable of being changed. It is necessary for us to correctly settle this issue before we can begin to examine the present truth and relevance of God's Sabbath institution. As I mentioned in the introduction, God's Sabbath institution was established first upon his act of resting upon the seventh day, which was followed by his acts of blessing and sanctifying the seventh day from the other 6 working days. God numbered the 6 working days, but gave a specific name to the day on which he rested. God named the seventh day his Sabbath day, which literally means God's rest day. For the word rest implies work, and the Sabbath of the Lord was established as an everlasting memorial of God's creative work at the beginning of time. In fact, the Scriptures tell us that time itself was created and established by God on the 4th day, when he created and ordained the sun and the moon as bearers of the light created on the 1st day. And such remains the same until this very moment in time. We know that a year is measured by a full revolution of the earth around the sun, and that a month is measured by a full revolution of the moon around the earth, and a day by a full rotation of the earth upon its axis. But the 7th day of the week is derived from nothing within nature. Rather, it owes its existence to the 6 days of creation and to the Creator's divine appointment of the 7th day to holy use. A clear understanding of the eternal relevance of God's Sabbath institution is founded upon the scriptural truth that the law of God is perfect and eternal. For the law of God is a transcript of God's eternal and unchanging character. But what do I mean when I say the law of God? To what specific law in the Scriptures do I refer? Quite often I have found that the source of much confusion surrounding the Sabbath question is modern Christianity's treatment of the 2 separate and distinct laws of the Bible as one and the same. This error lays a dangerous foundation for a misconstruction of not only the present truth and relevance of God's Sabbath commandment, but the present truth and relevance pertaining to the entire moral law of God, of which the Sabbath commandment is a central part. The Scriptures speak of 2 separate and distinct laws, that is, the law written and commanded of the Israelite nation by Moses, i.e. the law of Moses, and the law written and commanded of the Israelite nation by God himself, i.e. the law of God. The law of Moses was given by God to the Israelite nation, but it was given only through his servant Moses. It was both spoken and written by Moses in a book, signifying its temporary nature. Also, this book of the law of Moses was placed beside or on the outside of the sacred ark of God's covenant. In contrast, the law commanded by God to the Israelite nation was spoken to them by God's own thundering voice after their exodus from Egypt and from the top of Mount Sinai, when, as the Scriptures record, God descended upon that holy mount with thousands of his angels in the sight and in the hearing of all the Israelite people. And with a showing of great power and strength, God delivered to the people his fiery law of 10 words or commandments, which he wrote with his divine finger upon tables of stone, signifying their permanent nature. In further contrast to the law of Moses, the eternal law of God was placed inside the sacred ark of God's covenant and directly beneath the mercy or judgment seat of God, which signified that man's redemption was necessary from the penalty of God's eternal and uncompromising law. In sum, the law of Moses was of a temporary nature, given exclusively to the Hebrew people until what the Scriptures refer to as the time of Reformation, that is, until the coming and redemption of mankind through Jesus Christ. Whereas the law of God was of an eternal nature, put in the hearts of mankind from the beginning of creation.